Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme, exploring songs that feature a choir, where a choir is four or more vocalists singing at the same time. It's a topic, a theme that I really like. We've started off really strong with that Bjork track yesterday, and today we're going to dive into some Ulver. We're going to be looking at the song Rolling Stones, but this is going to be a live performance from Norway in 2018. So, let's dive into it. See what Ulver is bringing to the table today. Oh, that detuned. Quick warning, I noticed when I was doing the volume check on this, there is a lot of flashing lights at the end of this song. So if you're sensitive to that, just a warning, do what you need to do. I like those bells in the background. They're very bright against everything else. It's very brooding and dark and heavy. So we have a drum kit, but we also have some hand drums off on the left here. I'm not sure what drum exactly it is. It's almost like setting an atmosphere for the guitar solo, but the guitar isn't really soloing as much as also adding to the atmosphere. That classic 80 electronic drum sounds. The auxiliary percussion is still going behind all this. The noisy elements have gone away to make room for this consonant sounds, this harmony on the vocals. Oh, they weren't hand drums, were they? Oh, cool. That wood block rhythm is now in the hi-hat. A nice way to act as a transition back into the noisy atmospheric stuff, but also to showcase the rhythm coming up. Very catchy. Even the even the verse is catchy though. But this chorus, yeah, quick little movement, and then all these offbeat hits, very syncopated. I think that's what makes it really catchy. All right. I don't think there's anything that could have prepared me for that. I thought a pretty good. I thought I had a pretty good understanding of the song up until the ending, and they took the foundation of the intro, the interlude, whatever you want to call it, and ramped it up to 1,000. All right, very cool stuff though. I mean, as usual, when we check out newer Ulver stuff, I'm usually pretty amazed by it. I think they do a fantastic job at atmosphere, and pairing that with melody. Usually, I find because like you can kind of put this in the post rock, post-metal area of music. It is hyper repetitive. It's designed to emphasize atmosphere over riffage or memorable drum solos or anything like that. But there's also a really strong poppy element to it and borderline experimental, I think, once we move into that outro. And they've always done what I think is that they excel at, is pairing melodic ideas with atmospheric ones and making something that is both emotionally powerful but doesn't get rid of hooks to achieve that. And that's exactly what they did here. It is simultaneously something that I ultimately expected from the group, and I'm assuming some of their later outputs, they started off with metal, right? And harsh vocals and stuff. Or am I thinking of a different group? Regardless, where's I going with that? Anyways, they do this very well. And oh yeah, it's simultaneously something I couldn't have expected, but is exactly what I would expect from Ulver. So I want to focus real quick on the dichotomy of the beginning of the song, and then how that builds into the outro. We start the song off with a noisy, atmospheric jam session. I had described it at the beginning as the band creating an atmosphere for the guitar to solo over, except the guitar isn't really soloing either. They just happen to be the lead instrument here. And so they are given prominence in the production. It's very easy to single out what the guitar is doing, but they're not doing anything melodic or even really harmonic. It's about texture. It's about how they're adding to the rest of the group. They're just given a little bit more of the spotlight. And so we have a section that showcases some expanded instrumentation, which I thought was pretty awesome. We have bells in here. We have what I thought were hand drums based off their timbre, but they were being hit with a mallet. A fuzzy mallet at that. All of that paired with the drum kit, and then the synthy sounds from the keyboard and from the electronic drum pad. All of this mixed together to create some really, aside from the bells, some darker, moodier, heavy atmosphere. The guitar mostly plays noise around that, using pitch bends, probably a whammy bar, some string bends on it, in order to achieve microtonality, to have these gradual shifts between tones rather than just this pitch and then this pitch. And it gives everything a bit of an unsettling feeling with the amount of time that these guitar tones end up bending. It isn't just a quick little movement like you would hear from a blues guitar soloist or something like that. These are very long, drawn out bends. And it creates feelings of tension in the song, because you never really know when the bend is going to end. And I don't know the psychology behind that, but constantly rising, or constant minimal rising of pitch, just feels unsettling, at least to me. I don't know if that's the same for everyone. And this song does a lot of that. I think it's interesting then that it pairs it with the bells. They create a levity, a brightness amongst all of this darkness, all of these warmer, lower tones, and we get this very bright, metallic pinging sound on top of that. I'm curious what their intentions were with that. And as usual, running into an interesting detail in the music really makes me curious about the lyrics. What story are they telling here? I picked up the repeated phrase at the end about, a child in the woods or something. I said I picked them up, but I'm trying to remember them. And maybe I didn't pick them up as well as I thought I did. Anyways, we'll get to the lyrics later on. But the mood is set right here at the beginning. There's darkness, there's heaviness, there's weight, and a little bit of brightness on top of all of it. The noisier elements, primarily the guitar and some of the synth stuff leaves in order to bring in some great vocal harmony. This is kind of catchy for being the verse. Initially, I thought we had kicked it off with the chorus, but after figuring the structure was probably something like intro, verse, chorus, intro again, though acting as an interlude this time, verse, chorus, outro. This is the verse. It's the first repeated idea. So it's a bit catchier than I would expect for a verse, but it ends up working really well. It is just, I think, primarily the gorgeous harmonies that make it stand out and push the song forward. It is interesting, I think, to contrast the noisier, denser atmosphere of the intro with this unification here. Instead of having a bunch of instruments do a lot of things to create a varied and dense atmosphere to the song, we have 3, 4 vocalists all singing the same line, the same rhythm. They're just varied in pitch, but in a way that's positive. It amplifies the idea rather than runs against it. And so we do have this, beauty of the vocals cutting through the noise of the intro and replacing it. And I really love that imagery. That where once it was scary, ominous, tense, it's still a little bit that, but it's more calming than it was before. Something has changed in our environment, and it's lightened the mood just ever so slightly. And of course, this gives way to the chorus, which is just super catchy. I talked about the syncopation on it, the quick beginning. The first 3 or 4 syllables are quickly got through, and then once we hit the second half of the phrase, I think everything is on an offbeat, which just gives it a light bounciness. And so there's a quick pace to it, but there's also a levity. There's a lightness to the whole thing. And it is super catchy. I love the rhythm. I love the harmony on it. It is a good section. And of course, their harmony, their vocal work is beautiful. You have pretty much a wide range here too, with his vocals being a bit warmer at the lower end of the chord that they're doing. I think he has the lowest vocals, the lowest pitches of the entire stack. And then we have some notes that get put on top of that and go from a warmer to a colder tone. They get brighter and fuller. It's just a really nice combination of sounds that create this multifaceted stack of notes. And it's just absolutely gorgeous to listen to. There's also a lot of energy here. The projection of the vocals is very strong, very resonant. The vocals feel larger here than the verse. There is an element, to me at least, I think, of finding strength in the darkness, of removing that unease for these beautiful chords, and then evolving those beautiful chords into this projected power. There's still darkness around you. The atmosphere hasn't really changed too much. The chords have altered a little bit, as if to say that the vocalists are beginning to influence their environment. But it hasn't completely removed any of that tension or unease from the heavy, weightier atmosphere around them. It's just lightened it up a little bit. And of course, this doesn't completely get rid of it, because after this section we return back to the noisy guitar work. It's a nice little cycle here that tells a little story, to me at least. And it's all done so effortlessly. There's probably a lot of instruments. It was tough to tell with the lighting on the stage being so dark as it was. But, I hear an auxiliary percussionist, maybe 2. There's a lot of auxiliary percussion going on, and I don't know what they all are, so I don't know if one person could do it. We also have the person on drums. We have the person on guitar, which I don't think I ever saw, but I heard. I don't know if there's a bassist. There's a keyboardist, and then the lead vocalist who also does the drum pad, and then the 2 backup vocals. There's a lot of stuff going on. And it all comes together in a way that feels focused and simple. Might I say that? It's probably quite difficult, but it's one of those things that looks, or at least in this case sounds, easier than it probably is. But I think that hidden depth is what makes it work really well. It almost gives it a pop shallowness on some level, um, that I think amplifies its energy. It makes it easier to kind of read the atmosphere, not as five or six different instruments, but as a condensed whole. Same with the vocal line being, as stacked as it is, it's very easy to just feel it as the vocals, as this unified force. And so the end result is that the song feels like there's not a lot going on, but what that not a lot is doing is very effective. But of course, in reality, there is a lot of things happening. And like I said, I like that hidden depth, and I think it does a great job of making this a bit more palatable and easier to digest on a first time listen. And after this, we get to the build up, the outro. This was masterfully done. The backup vocals are repeating themselves over and over, but they're also getting fed into some sort of loop machine or some effect pedal. I don't know. They're getting repeated over and over and over with extended reverb on each repetition. So you have the physical repetition of what they're actually saying, and then the digital replication or repetition, and it creates this feeling of being in a cave. And this, of course, is all pushed into the atmosphere. The echoed vocals are not full bodied. They get airy and dispersed and stretched out to where they're a bit thinner. They're almost reach an ethereal level of sound. And it just kind of blends into the background, which of course is rising intention. I have no idea what all is going on in this section. There's so many noisy layers all coming together into a wall of sound. And what's really impressive about this is, I just got done talking about how there is the ability, I think, to hear a lot of ideas as a singular force on this track, and it's what makes it easier to digest. But if you want to, you can use attentive listening, active listening, and single out instruments. The production is clear enough for that. Until you get to this part, this is a true wall of sound. It is difficult for me to pick any individual idea out of this. It is just the cacophony of everything smushed together, the ideas bouncing off of each other and creating all these clashing sounds and just everything. It's harmonically dissonant. It's rhythmically dense. Yeah, I don't think there's melody in here, but if there is, there's so much of it that you can't tell any of it apart. And then you do have the vocals on top of that, kind of with this repeated idea over and over, and those vocals echoing out and moving from the singularity into the one, becoming the atmosphere. It is an evocative section. I don't think I said a word during it because we also have the snare roll in the background, just keeping this intensity at the very bottom. The basic idea here, what is the snare doing? This gives us our rhythmic pulse. Most of the song, the snare has been on 2 and 4 with our bass kick on 1 and 3, giving us a sense of 4 on the floor, but not, a bass kick on every beat, alternating between the bass kick and the snare. And here the snare is doing 16th notes constantly, just a tight little roll going on, and it's impossible not to feel that intensity. Where we were once very chill and relaxed and directed, we're now, like Rolling Stone, we're rolling down a hill, catching speed as we go. I don't know if we actually have an accelerando going on here. I think the tempo is consistent, but there's so many other dynamic elements that aren't. The volume continues to rise as this section goes on. The layers and density of everything continues to rise, whether that means we're adding extra instruments or we're using the reverb to create digital replications of things that are being done. We continue to stack ideas up over and over and over, and it just snowballs out of control until it ends. The little story that I had in my head on this, as I mentioned, dark, eerie atmosphere, and then finding beauty within that, beginning to use your positivity to affect your environment, but it isn't enough. The environment fights back and snuffs out the sound. Let me try again though. This is our second verse and chorus. Except this time, instead of just being immediately cut out, the environment grows hostile, rising in intensity. Nothing can break out of this. The vocals that were once something that cut through the darkness are now being weaponized, used by, well, no, that's a good place for utilized by the atmosphere to grow itself more so than to cut through it and defeat it. It is now supporting itself off of the very same vocals that could cut through it before. And by the end, we just have a final note and some silence. To me, there's a finality to that. Whatever the story is here, I don't think that the light won. uh, and the song ends on a very, like I said, final note. There is no fighting back of the beauty this time. At least, again, that's how I interpret it. And so it does make the atmosphere, I think, scarier at the end. I think the bending notes created more tension in the intro and interlude, but the ending is a force that you thought was defeatable at one point in time, and you realized that you just hadn't seen its true power yet. You hadn't seen its final form. And when that happens, you realized how futile the efforts were all along. Any sense of victory or progress was false. And I think there's real terror in that, a sense of helplessness, but one that you understand you should have always felt. You were just being toyed with, though. I don't know if that's what the song's about at all. We're gonna hit some lyrics right now, but I mean that's the story the music gave me, and that is heavy. And that's why I was silent at the end. I didn't want to interrupt any of that. I didn't want to talk over it, but also I kind of felt paralyzed a little bit. I had plenty of thoughts. I could have said something, but I said nothing at all. And it was captivating to listen to. Let's hit some lyrics. Hmm. All right. The song is about a duality of sorts, not quite in the way I was expecting, and one that it doesn't tie as closely to my narrative of the music as I would have liked. I saw some stuff at the beginning of the lyrics. I was like, oh, cool. You know, I might have been on track with what the music was telling me, but it only kind of fits. Let's dig into this. So, verse 1 starts off and says, I have seen the world that you believe in. Black ships with rats, dead Caesars and sons. Hear the children sing. They cry murder. What's done is done and there is more to come. The idea that people believe in a world, and he thinks that maybe it's due to a little bit of fantasy. The world that people believe in had the Black Plague, dead kings, has children singing in the streets crying of murder. And he says, you can't change any of our violent past, and violence is what's ahead of us as well. What's done is done, and there is more to come. Verse 2 says, the second coming means nothing to me. I have tasted death, everybody and everything. I long for my own, for the curtain to fall to wipe the blood off the face of the earth. Basically says that there will be no rapture. None of us are being taken to a better place. This is it, and this kind of sucks. He says, I've tried everything the world has to offer, and I've still found nothing that would make me want to stay here, going so far as to say that he longs for his own death. This is a person who is wildly disillusioned with the world, speaking to somebody who still has faith in it. The music then, I think, reflects the mindset of our narrator and the way that he perceives these people who still have faith in humanity, in the world, venturing into the darkness of the world and trying to shine their light, trying to make the world a better place, and being snuffed out by the darkness and hatred of humanity. The chorus says, poor little sister, I hope you understand that the babe in the woods will be taken by a wolf. I didn't quite get this, so I'm glad we have some annotation here. It says that it could possibly be referencing the Roman myth of Romulus and Remus, who were bred by a wolf. Humans left out in the forest, and a wolf takes them under as their own. It says, in that kind of situation, the wolf eats the kids. Don't believe the myths. Don't let them, taint your minds. Don't believe in unreality. In our world, the wolves eat the weak. And he says, I hope you understand that. So we have somebody who is very disillusioned with the world, believes they see it for what it is, of darkness, pain, violence, hatred, and is trying to turn somebody who's a bit more optimistic on things to their side. Which is wild. Seriously. So I mentioned that my little narrative of light being swallowed up by the darkness, trying to fight back, but ultimately failing, I think works as far as this person's mentality goes, of them creating this story in their head that anybody who tries to fight the darkness ends up getting devoured by it. Which is exactly what's said lyrically as well. But then I listen to the song, and I'm like, dang, the narrator is part of these beautiful vocals. It is a super catchy song. There's so many things in here that I wouldn't say that they don't fit with the themes of the song, but they certainly feel a little out of place to me. It's a nihilistic track, and yet I really like the vibes of the verse and chorus. They don't feel nihilistic or overwhelming at all. It's only the interludes. I don't know if that means something to them or not, though. I might be missing a little bit of context to see how it all ties together, but there's also, I think, an equal chance that it's just a really great song, that the overall narrative works with the themes of the lyrics, but individual sections might not. And that's fine. That's one of the compromises you have to make when creating technically multimedia art here. We're working with both sound and poetry and language. Sometimes they just line up perfectly, and sometimes you got to give up a little stuff. And I think the lining up of the nihilistic lyrics with beautiful, soaring, gorgeous vocal work, it's just one of those things you have to ignore because the larger theme, I think, does work here. So, those are my thoughts. Ulver's Rolling Stone. Let me know what you thought about. Wait, is Rolling Stone supposed to be figurative language for Earth? It doesn't roll per se, but it does spin. It's not technically a stone either. But it is talking about the world around them. I can't really see any other metaphor for like just a stone rolling. I kind of mentioned that we had a snowballing effect, like a stone rolling down a hill. Oh, wait! Could this be about Sisyphus? About how trying to make the world brighter or better is a Sisyphean task? That no matter how much better you get it, the boulder will roll back down. You'll have to start from scratch, which is what the song does. It starts dark and noisy and gets a little brighter, a little clearer, a little happier, and then it starts over. And so the outro could also be a representation of the fatigue or, I don't know, the giving up. Giving into the nihilism. After trying to push the rock up hundreds of times, you just give up. Maybe the earth isn't worth trying to make brighter. You've been defeated at that point. Okay, those are now my thoughts on this. That was like a last second revelation. What are your thoughts, though, on Ulver's Rolling Stone? Is there anything that stood out to you? Maybe I didn't touch on, maybe some stuff you'd like to add on to what I said. Maybe I misspoke about something and I need to be corrected. Please put all that stuff down in the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for this one, but we do have a special selection coming up next. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. We're going to continue on with this week's theme. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.